Fellow Americans, the White House is destroying the rule of law, Congress is abandoning its constitutional duties, while flames cremate our republic, the Supreme Court isn't extinguishing the fire. Instead, 6 justices are dousing the flames with gasoline. Our democracy is in danger, and we should be terrified, but we cannot allow fear to handcuff us. Act we must to save ourselves and our nation. Survival requires much of us, including this one crucial behavior change. We must improve how we talk about our problems, which will help us generate true solutions. You can find examples of how we must change the way in which we talk about our problems in my book, Their Accomplices Wore Robes: How the Supreme Court Chained Black America to the Bottom of a Racial Caste System. I wrote in the context of the Constitution, the Supreme Court, and Black Americans, but the general principles apply broadly. Upgrading how we communicate is a necessary but not sufficient condition to a better America. So I made this video essay to explain how I wrote my book in hopes that it might inspire you. I'm titling it New Frameworks. Book writing strains the mind, taxes the body, grinds the soul. I've endured and conquered it twice. This beast, this hard yet rewarding toil. My most recent conquest, Their Accomplices Wore Robes, proved exhausting. But the process instilled audacity and verve in me that I will bring to all future endeavors, including this YouTube channel. As I completed my book during the 2024 presidential campaign, I feared that my countryfolk would vote to further sabotage our political system and social fabric. Did you live in terror too? I found clarity and direction about what loomed ahead in Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. A Yale historian, Snyder explains how to stave off tyranny, the hell that has swallowed millions before, that is swallowing millions now, that regrettably will swallow millions more for as long as hearts beat. He provides 20 lessons on how to resist tyranny's onslaught. The 9th lesson especially grabbed me. Be kind to our language. Avoid pronouncing the phrases everyone does. Think up your own way of speaking, Snyder writes. When we repeat the same words and phrases that appear in the daily media, we accept the absence of a larger framework. If we uncritically adopt the language permeating a society polluted by the incurious and the unscrupulous, we deny ourselves the opportunity to best understand and remedy deep-rooted ills and new challenges. In Their Accomplices Wore Robes, I unwittingly heeded Lesson 9, conceiving fresh ways of discussing the dilemma of race, which has bedeviled this land for 400 years, since the first enslaved Africans drew breath here. I built a new framework under which to assess how much America has failed at fulfilling the lost promise of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, what I called the Trinity. The 13th, ratified in 1865, granted freedom. The 14th, ratified in 1868, guaranteed equality. The 15th, ratified in 1870, exempted citizens from race-based denials of voting rights. The original Constitution safeguarded the rights of slave owners. The Trinity fundamentally transformed the nation and the Constitution, turning America into a place that must protect the rights of all. I refer to these 3 post-Civil War amendments as the Trinity because we should imagine them as a collective whole that awarded us the legal means through which this nation could transcend its racial caste system. A racial hierarchy enforced through law, rules, and norms that confines the Black population into a subordinate legal, political, and social status from womb to grave. When we speak of racial injustice in the context of the broader social and constitutional commitments to equality, we typically employ the anti-discrimination framework. We malign discriminators and pity their victims. The villains within this framework commit the sin of race discrimination. We preach that Americans must strive to shape a country without such malevolence. And only until we arrest it will we satisfy the ambition of forging a true and just multiracial democracy. In Their Accomplices Wore Robes, however, I rely on the language of caste. I built a framework that implemented the principles of anti-caste, the worldview that opposes the existence of the racial caste system. We need to discard race discrimination language and instead start a conversation about racial oppression, where we insist that each of us, through our presence in America, is owed freedom from caste. We must set this, freedom from caste, as our ambition. A century and a half ago, we the people ratified the Trinity. As a result, we each possess a right to not be treated as a member of a degraded caste. The truest villains in this story are not discriminators or racists, but rather caste preservationists, those who, in the race context, seek the eternal primacy of the white population. Jim Crow segregationists, for example, carried the caste preservationism mantle. The truest opponents of caste preservationism are not anti-racist or colorblind advocates, but rather caste abolitionists, those who seek the destruction of the racial caste system. The heroes of the civil rights movement personify caste abolitionism. We the people must concentrate on expunging not discrimination, but rather what I call caste work, caste producing and sustaining laws, policies, and actions. Mass incarceration, schemes to dilute the black vote, steering black homebuyers away from white neighborhoods. All examples of caste work perpetuate evil, not because they simply discriminate, but because they help maintain the racial caste system. My anti-caste framework helps end racial oppression in two main ways. First, it compels the state to eliminate caste work, regardless of its underlying motivation. And second, it compels the state to implement remedies to the inequalities the caste system has caused. The anti-discrimination framework, in contrast, often allows caste work to persist, largely because victims cannot always trace it back to a specific wrongdoer. Moreover, the anti-discrimination framework places no obligation on governmental actors to redress any inflicted damage. Effectively, the anti-discrimination framework perpetuates black suffering. Various problems beyond the color line wound our democracy as we use deficient frameworks and substandard language. Only through better frameworks and better language can we reform America into what we deserve. As dishonorable judges and corrupt and ineffectual politicians diminish America, millions across racial, gender, sexual, and economic lines dread what lies ahead. The Constitution allows for the production of the judicial decisions, laws, and policies necessary to unlock justice and freedom. But only bold thinking can rescue the oppressed, rebuild the nation, and salvage our democracy. The fire I mentioned to start this video terrifies you, I'm sure. It terrifies me. We don't want to watch our democracy disappear into smoldering rubble. But if we are honest with ourselves, a leading reason why we are trying to stave off fascism is that those of us who want a true multiracial democracy haven't been good enough. We have allowed fascists to gain momentum. Let's reverse it by producing actual intelligent thought rather than just repeating the failed language of the past. Stay brave.